Life becomes harder when you care deeply, because every disappointment hits your heart before it ever reaches your mind. When you care, even small failures feel heavy, because your emotions are fully invested in the outcome. Caring makes life painful at times, but it also proves that you are alive and emotionally awake. Life is harder when you care, because you don't walk away easily from people or promises. When you care too much, silence hurts louder than harsh words ever could. Caring turns ordinary problems into emotional battles that others may never understand. Life feels heavier when you care, because you notice things that careless people ignore. When you care, you overthink moments that others forget within seconds. Caring means you feel deeply, even when the world tells you to stay numb. Life is harder when you care, because you try even when quitting would be easier. When you care, you don't give half effort. You give your heart, and that costs energy. Caring makes rejection painful, because you are genuinely hopeful. Life tests caring people more, because they refuse to become cold. When you care, you feel responsible even for things that were never your fault. Caring keeps you awake at night, replaying conversations and wondering what you could have done better. Life feels unfair when you care, because not everyone values effort the same way you do. When you care deeply, disappointment doesn't just pass, it stays and teaches. Caring makes you vulnerable, and vulnerability is both your weakness and your strength. Life is harder when you care, because you don't treat people as disposable. When you care, you remember birthdays, broken promises, and unspoken pain. Caring means you feel hurt, but you still choose kindness. Life becomes emotionally exhausting when you care in a world that moves on quickly. When you care, you forgive even when you shouldn't, hoping people will change. Caring makes losses feel personal, not just temporary. Life is harder when you care, because you expect honesty and effort from others. When you care, you stay longer than you should, believing things will improve. Caring turns love into courage and pain into lessons. Life challenges caring people to stay soft in a harsh environment. When you care, you notice changes in tone, mood, and energy. Caring makes you emotionally brave, even when it hurts. Life is harder when you care, because you invest time, trust, and hope. When you care, disappointment teaches you maturity instead of bitterness. Caring means you feel deeply, even when pretending would be easier. Life tests your patience when you care, because progress feels slow. When you care, you take things personally, because they matter to you. Caring makes heartbreak heavier, but love more meaningful. Life is harder when you care, because you refuse to become careless. When you care, you value emotional connection over convenience. Caring makes you human in a world that often rewards indifference. Life hurts more when you care, but it also shapes stronger character. When you care, you give chances, even after being hurt. Caring turns effort into purpose and struggle into growth. Life is harder when you care, because you feel everything fully. When you care, you don't forget easily, even when you want to. Caring keeps your heart open, even after it has been wounded. Life challenges caring people to protect their hearts without closing them. When you care, you expect depth, not just attention. Caring means you stand by people during their worst moments. Life is harder when you care, because you don't fake emotions. When you care, you value effort more than excuses. Caring makes you emotional, not weak. Life feels heavier when you care, because you carry more than your own weight. When you care, you try to understand instead of judging. Caring means you feel disappointment, but you still hope. Life is harder when you care, because you take responsibility seriously. When you care, you notice when effort isn't returned. Caring makes patience a daily challenge. Life teaches caring people resilience through repeated emotional tests. When you care, you feel deeply connected, even when distance exists. Caring makes goodbyes harder and memories stronger. Life is harder when you care, because you expect sincerity. When you care, you give your best, even when unnoticed. Caring turns simple moments into meaningful memories. Life becomes emotionally intense when you care deeply. When you care, you protect what matters, even at personal cost. Caring makes betrayal painful but also revealing. Life is harder when you care, because you believe in people. When you care, you don't give up easily on dreams, or relationships. Caring means you value connection over comfort. Life tests caring people by delaying rewards. When you care, you invest emotionally, not just practically. Caring keeps you genuine in a world full of masks. Life is harder when you care, because you expect meaning. When you care, you feel responsible for outcomes you cannot control. Caring makes effort emotional, not mechanical. Life challenges caring people to stay hopeful. When you care, you listen more than you speak. Caring means choosing empathy over ego. Life is harder when you care, because you don't ignore pain. When you care, you remember who supported you and who didn't. Caring makes you loyal, even when it's difficult. Life feels heavier when you care, but also more real. When you care, you value growth over shortcuts. Caring keeps your intentions pure, even when misunderstood. Life is harder when you care, because you aim for honesty. When you care, you feel deeply connected to outcomes. Caring makes you emotionally invested, not careless. Life teaches caring people wisdom through pain. When you care, you expect effort, not perfection. Caring turns struggle into strength over time. Life is harder when you care, because you choose depth. When you care, you feel disappointment, but still move forward. Caring means staying sincere, even when it costs you peace. Life shapes caring people into strong souls. When you care, you learn lessons that others avoid. Caring makes you emotionally aware, not fragile. Life is harder when you care, but it also becomes meaningful. When you care, you live honestly, not carelessly. Caring turns pain into understanding over time. Life is harder when you care, but caring is what makes life worth living.